Well, after all your searching, you finally find the one that you've been looking for. And of course, you're naturally very excited. And so what do? You make an offer and the owners accept it. And the next thing you do is you move in. And there's, of course, nothing more to do, just enjoy it. Of course, it doesn't take too long before you realise that there's work to do. Sure, it's yours. You've moved in, your car's in the garage. You've even got time to relax in your favourite armchair. That's the first thing you did. But what about the dishes? What about the lawn? What about the laundry and the crack in the roof tile? The one you didn't know about until after it started to rain. Well, it's still exciting, isn't it? It's still wonderful. It's just not quite what you imagined it would be. There's work to do. But you know what? You love it. And because you love it, you do it. Now, in some ways, that's kind of what it's like when you first become a Christian. Jesus calls us, he calls each one of us, and what do? We hear his voice and we follow. It's exciting. Life suddenly has new meaning. We find a church, we move in, we settle down, we relax. Life is good. And as we listen to Jesus, he begins to say things to us that, well, truth be known, they unsettle us. Sometimes we're unsettled through the pastor, what he says. Sometimes, and more often this is the case, we're unsettled because when we read God's word, God speaks directly to us through his word. We quickly learn, don't we, that there's work to do. Well, what kind of work? What kind of work? Well, he's certainly not calling us to do his work, is he? He's calling us to do our work. His work is finished. Their work, however, the disciples' work, our work, your work, my work, well, that's just beginning. Not to save ourselves, that's not our work. Not to earn God's favour, that's not our work. Not to strive to keep the law. But Jesus did all of that for us. It is finished. We heard Jesus say that, didn't we? There's nothing more to do. Finished. It's all finished, all of it. And having finished what we couldn't do, he then gives us work that we can do. In fact, he gives us work we must do. You see, Jesus won't allow us to just move in and sit in our favourite armchair and relax. He won't let us do that. Not for long, not forever. You see, Jesus didn't come just for us. Jesus didn't come just for me. Jesus didn't come just for you. Jesus came for all his people. And until he gathers all of his people to himself, he has work for us. He has work for you. And he has work for me, all of us. 15-year-olds, if you're 15, he has work for you to do. 30-year-olds, if you're 30, he's got work for you to do. 60-year-olds, if you're 60, Jesus has work for you to do. If you're 90, Jesus isn't sending you out to pasture. He's got work for you to do. And it's work, says Jesus, born of love. Not work to earn his love. It's work because of love. His love. His love for us and our love for him. And it's what this particular passage that was brought to us a little earlier is all about. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Now, where this takes place, this particular conversation, is really very important. In verse 9 of the passage that we looked at last week, as we discussed leadership, we are told that Jesus has prepared a fire. And on this fire, Jesus is going to prepare for his disciples some breakfast. But the morning would also have been a cold morning, and the disciples will gather around the fire to warm themselves. And it's here, church, standing by a fire as Peter warms himself, that Jesus asks him 3 questions. As he stands by a fire and warms himself. And by asking here, Jesus is taking Peter back to another fire that Peter stood in front of to warm himself. And at that fire, Peter was also asked 3 questions. Remember those questions? He was asked, do you know him? Do you know Jesus? And in order to save himself, what does Peter do? In order to save himself, he denies knowing him. And he denies knowing him 3 times. And it's a scene that would have played out in Peter's head again and again. And here, around another fire, Jesus gives to Peter a new story. It's different than the old story. He gives to him a new story. He allows Peter to start again. And Jesus, knowing that Peter's denial filled him with remorse and guilt, it will now free him. It's not going to change what happened, but it will free Peter from the guilt that he feels. Jesus will release Peter from the consequences of the past, and he will give to Peter a brand new future. But there's more. Peter denied Jesus. Why did he deny Jesus? Peter denied Jesus to save himself. Now Peter confesses his love of Jesus, and in so doing he will lay down his life. He denies Jesus to save himself, and now he confesses his love to Jesus and will lay down his life. Do you love me, Peter? Do you love me more than these? That's the question Jesus asks Peter. And it's a good question to ask, isn't it? But what exactly does Jesus mean? Do you love me more than these? Does Jesus mean, do you love me more than you love your friends? Is that what Jesus means? That might be what he means. It certainly fits the context, doesn't it? Or does he mean, do you love me more than your friends love me? Or does he mean, do you love me more than all of these things? The nets and the boat, your old way of life. And however you answer it, it doesn't really matter, does it? The question is, how much do you love me? Do you love me, Peter, more than these? Is your love for Jesus great? Or is your love for Jesus small? Tell me, says Jesus. Small, regular, or large? Which is it? Which is it? Now, the temptation here is to get caught up in the Greek. When Jesus speaks of love, he uses a different word than Peter uses. Son of John, love you me, agapas me more than these. He says to him, yes, Lord, you know that I dearly love you, philo you. Now, it might be that Jesus wants to know if Peter loves him the way that he loves Peter. And by looking at Peter's response, we might assume the answer to be no. You see, the love that Jesus has is a different love than the love that Peter has. Jesus loves with the love of God, agapas. Peter's love, philo, it doesn't compare. And you know what? I think Peter knows that. Only Jesus can love with that kind of love. And maybe as we read this text, maybe that's what is meant. And I think that's true. I do. I don't think that anyone can love the way that Jesus loves. No one can love the way that Jesus loves. We may think we do, but we don't, and we can't. Not completely, not fully. Not selflessly, not without without compromise, ready to forgive and restore, a love that never gives up. And perhaps Peter says, I love you, Lord, as much as I can love you. I love you, Lord. I have a great affection towards you, but I can never love you as much as you love me. That's also true. No matter how much we love God or how much we think we love God, it will always fall short of God's love for us. No matter how much you think you love God, it will always fall short of the love that God has for you. That's a wonderful truth. God will always outlove you. Always. Is that what John means? Well, maybe. But what we do know, church, is that Peter recognises, doesn't he, that Jesus already knows if Peter does or doesn't love him. You know that I love you. That's what Peter says. You know that I love you. Whatever Peter says, Jesus already knows. And Peter can say that he loves him even if he doesn't. Jesus will know. Jesus will know. He does know. Please don't think that you can fool the Lord. But more than that, church, be encouraged that he knows. You see, Peter, I think he understands something. Peter understands that Jesus knows the intent of his heart. Now, others might not see it. He's just denied him 3 times, and others might be looking at Peter saying, you know what, I'm not so sure about his love for Jesus. But Peter understands something. He might not always show it, but Peter understands that Jesus knows. Jesus knows his heart. Jesus knows that Peter really does love him. Peter knows it, and Jesus knows it. And so why did he deny him? Well, if Peter loves him, why the denial? The problem, church, is that Peter also loved himself. Peter also loved himself. He was still holding on to his life. He was afraid that he might lose it. That's the battle that raged inside of Peter. The struggle that Peter had is the struggle that every disciple has. It's a battle that you have. It's a battle that I have. Who do I love? What do I love? The person looking back at me in the mirror? Is that who I love? Or is it the one who died in my place? Do I want to please me, or do I want to please him? See, that's the battle that rages inside all of us, church. It's the battle that rages inside every last one of us, and it calls for us to choose every day, every time we're under pressure. It's not that we don't love Jesus, it's just that sometimes, church, sometimes we love ourselves more. That's what Peter did. Do you love me, Peter? Peter answers yes. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And I have absolutely no doubt at all that Peter answers honestly. Peter does love Jesus. Peter does love Jesus, and Jesus knows it, but there's still a battle to be fought, isn't there? Not to win God's love. We can't win God's love, just to love. That's the battle. That's the battle that rages inside of each one of us, just to love. To love him and not ourselves. And I want to come back to this a little later, but firstly, to help Peter grasp what love for Jesus should look like, Jesus frames it. And that's the thing about love. Love isn't what we say it is. Well, we think it is. It's not. Love isn't what we say it is. Love is what God says it is. That's what love is. We can't define love. Our governments can't define love. Our parents can't define love. Our children can't define love. God, he's the one who defines love. Love is what God says it is. This Peter, is what your love for me should look like. Feed my lambs. Now, whatever you do, church, whatever you do, please don't think that's cute. A petting zoo. That's what Jesus wants. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that's what Jesus wants. Jesus calls Peter to walk in his steps. Remember who Jesus is. Jesus is the good shepherd. He is the one that David speaks of. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord's sheep, church, are God's people. We are God's sheep. Without Jesus, we are scattered. Without him leading them, they are vulnerable. They wander aimlessly. They are lost. The way that you were lost before he found you, following your own wisdom and living by your own rules. And as Jesus finds his sheep, he brings them to himself. He calls Peter and all those like Peter, those who know the Good Shepherd and who listen to his voice, to do what the Good Shepherd does. That, church, is what love looks like. That's what love looks like. If you love me, says Jesus to Peter, you'll do what I do. You love my sheep. You'll care for them. And the first thing you'll do is you'll feed them. And be careful how you feed them. Never forget that they aren't your sheep. They're my sheep. And so take great care. Don't just give them what they want. Give them food that will make them strong in their faith. Remember when I first called you Peter? What did you know? You and the others. What did you know? You were still so young in your faith. You weren't sheep. You were lambs. You needed milk. I carried you. I protected you. I corrected you. If you love me, Peter, feed my lambs. The way I fed you, that's what I want you to do. I sat with you. I was patient with you. I taught you. And you listened. For 3 years, you listened to my voice. Now you go and you do as I did. I haven't saved you, Peter, so you can sit in your favourite armchair. I haven't chosen you so that you can sit around all day and just enjoy me. That's not why I chose you. That's not what I did. And so open your eyes, Peter. Open your eyes and feed my lambs. They need feeding. They need to be nourished. Teach them, Peter. Feed them the way I fed you. Now please notice that before Jesus tells Peter to feed his lambs, Peter and his fellow disciples, they are themselves fed. What we have here is a parable that is played out in real time. We see that in verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said. When they had finished eating, Jesus said. And the point here is that Peter isn't ready to feed anyone until he has first been fed by Jesus. For 3 years, Jesus has been feeding him. And Jesus is still feeding him. Even the fish they caught, Jesus provided them. And only after Peter is fed by Jesus does Jesus commission him to feed his sheep. You see, if Peter isn't fed by Jesus, then Peter cannot feed others. He has to first be fed by Jesus. And if Jesus doesn't feed me, then I can't feed others. And the same is true of Rod. The same is true of Stephen. The same is true of Glenn. And the same will be true of young Caleb when he gets up here and speaks this evening. Unless Jesus has fed Caleb, he can't feed us. That's true of all of us. Do you want to feed others? Well, if you do, church, you have to sit with Jesus and let him feed you. Not just once, but every day. You cannot feed his sheep any other way. And the more he feeds you, the more you'll be able to feed others. And notice too that this is a public commissioning. All of the disciples will know that Peter is ready. They'll know that his denial has been forgiven. They'll know that his weakness has been dealt with. Well, that's important too, right? That's very important. There'll be times when those the disciples disciple will let them down, the way that Peter let Jesus down. And when that happens, they'll be tempted to give up on them. You see, disciples do fail. They do. We all do. And some disciples, like Peter, fail spectacularly. Spectacularly. If you only knew how I have failed. It's what disciples do. We all fail. And Peter will remember, and those with him will remember. They'll remember that Jesus didn't give up on Peter. They'll remember that Jesus did not let Peter go. They'll remember that. Now, Jesus didn't ignore his failings. He didn't pretend that it didn't happen. He didn't say to Peter that it doesn't matter. It did matter. Peter had to wrestle with what he did. And having wrestled with it, what did Jesus do? Jesus forgave him and Jesus reinstated him. What an amazing Saviour. What a glorious Saviour. What a magnificent Saviour. That's what Jesus did. And Peter didn't have to first prove himself. What did Peter have to do? Can I tell you what Peter had to do? All that Peter had to do was love his Lord. That's all he had to do. That's a pretty good model, don't you think? A public commissioning. Peter is forgiven. He's reinstated. There's no longer any lingering doubt. The past has been dealt with and put to rest. You see, that's what Jesus does. He puts our past to rest. Even as much as we want to drag it back, Jesus says, don't. The past is in the past. It's been dealt with and put to rest. And then he calls us to get back on the horse and do what? To love him. That's what he calls us to do. To love him. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that this entire passage is really all about love. Peter's love for Jesus, the disciples' love for Jesus, your love and my love for Jesus. Now, why is that? Why love? We're coming to the very end of John's Gospel. Why is it that we're focused so intently and intentionally on love? Why love? Why not discipline? If only Peter was more disciplined, maybe he wouldn't have denied his Lord 3 times. Now, why not talk about discipline? Why not talk about obedience? If only Peter was more obedient, maybe he wouldn't have denied his Lord 3 times. Why not talk about obedience? Why not talk about perseverance or fearfulness or faith? Any one of those qualities would have helped Peter not do what he did. But what does Jesus talk about? He talks about love. That's what he talks about. You see, get that right, church, and everything else will fall into place. If love for Jesus more than anything else was Peter's motivation, he wouldn't have denied him the way he did. Listen, if you want to walk away from your marriage, what will prevent that from happening is love for Jesus. If you love Jesus more than that guy you've been seeing or the secretary you've been having an affair with, you wouldn't be seeing that guy or having that affair. If we love Jesus the way we should love Jesus, we wouldn't know ourselves. You This is what we love, church, that we desire more of. Love Jesus little, and you'll desire him little. Love Jesus much, and you'll desire him much. You'll want to honour him. You'll want to know more about him. You'll want to please him. You'll begin to love what he loves. You'll want to be where he is. Why? Because that's what love does. Now, the truth is, you can't be forced to love what you don't love. But when you realise who Jesus is, and when you realise just how much he loves you, here's the thing. You won't need to be forced. You won't need to be forced. And so Jesus asks Peter 3 times if he loves him, and maybe it was because Peter denied him 3 times. But I think there's something more. See, everything that Jesus calls Peter to do, feed his lambs, tend his sheep, feed his sheep, all of it is motivated by one thing: love. It's all motivated by love. None of it is motivated by anything other than love. Not Peter's courage, not Peter's brilliant mind, not even Peter's calling. Feed my lambs. Why? Because you love me. Feed my lambs, Peter. Why? Because you love me. Tend my sheep. Why? What's your motivation? Because you love me. Feed my sheep. Why? Because you love me. No matter what you do in ministry, always do it out of love for Jesus. Serve others at morning tea. Why? Because you love Jesus. Because you love Jesus. Greet others at the door. Why? Because you love Jesus. Because you love Jesus. Lead a life group. Why? Why give up your Wednesday night? Can I tell you why? Because you love Jesus. Attend a life group. Why? Because you love Jesus. Gather with God's people. Why? Because you love Jesus. Make a meal once a month for those who gather for night church. Why? Because you love Jesus. Offer to help out at Next Gen. Why? Because you love Jesus. Give of your finances and your time and your ability. Why? Why? Well, because you love Jesus. Do none of those things, church, because you have to. Can I say that again? Do none of those things because you have to. Do all of those things because you love Jesus. Now just imagine for a moment how different this church would be if everything we did out of love for Jesus. Imagine for a moment if everything you did because you loved Jesus. You invite someone to share a meal with you, a meal that you pay for, a meal that you prepare. Why? If I had multiple choice here, do you think you'd be able to tick the right answer? Because you love Jesus. You give sacrificially to the work of ministry, both financially as well as with your talents and your time. Why? Because you love Jesus. You make a point to meet with God's people every week. Sometimes you even meet with God's people twice a week. Why? Why would we do that? Can I tell you why? If you've never heard this before, can I tell you why? Because you love Jesus. Do you love me, Peter? Do you love me, Duncan? Do you love me, Dean? Do you love me, Kathy? See, how you answer that question is important, church, for a whole host of reasons. It's important. Not least of all, it's why you'll serve him. Love for Jesus will be all the motivation you need. And church, you'll do it willingly. And if you love him, you'll do it passionately. And if you love him, you'll do it unceasingly. And if you love him, you'll do it gratefully. Do you see? Do you see why he talks about love? And not obedience? And not discipline? And not fear? he talks about love. Knowing that every opportunity to serve is an opportunity to serve him. And that should be our motivation. And then Jesus says something that no one expected. Listen to him. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Now the call to follow me doesn't come with any caveats. Please notice what it doesn't say. Follow me only as far as it doesn't cost you. It doesn't say that. No. If you follow me, Peter, know that you'll follow me to the cross, your own cross, the very thing that you hid from. One day, Peter, one day you are going to walk to, and you won't want to walk to it. It's not something that will fill you with joy and happiness. Why not? Because it will be filled with suffering. But here's the thing, Peter, you'll do it. You know it's coming, and you'll do it. Why? Why do you think you'll do it? Because you love me. It's the only reason why Peter is going to do it. Because he loves him. And you do it because you want to serve him. And because I've called you to follow me. Follow me, Peter. Now, let me finish with two final points. Firstly, following Jesus does not guarantee no more suffering. On the contrary, and I've said this many times before, Caleb's going to say it tonight, I'm probably going to repeat it. Following Jesus promises suffering. Follow Jesus, and one thing I can promise you is this: you will suffer. There you go. You will suffer. But you will suffer for him. Your suffering will glorify him. Your suffering will point others to him. People will see in your suffering something that they don't have. And they will see a hope in your suffering that goes beyond your suffering. They will see in your suffering a trust. They will see in your suffering a peace that simply should not be there. They will see in your suffering a confidence that God is holding you, that he hasn't abandoned you. And Christianity, of course, is filled with such stories. And the second point I want to make, and I think this is the point that the text wants to make, is this: don't worry about what other people are doing. Concern yourself with what you're doing. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry where the Lord is leading them. Just concern yourself with you. Worry about where it is that the Lord is leading you. What is God calling you to do? What is God calling you to do? And whatever it is, do it because you love him. Do it because your desire is to love him more than you love yourself. Don't look at what others are doing. Concentrate on serving and following him. Let's pray. Father God, we do thank you for your word. Continue to speak to us through it. May we have ears to hear, soft hearts to receive. And may we in your church here in Beaconsfield be transformed more every day into the image of your Son. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.